And Raul, how are you today?
Yes.
Hi, Raul, how are you?
I am fine.
Good, very good. And Thwa, how are you doing today?
Very good. Thanks.
Good. And Trung, how are you doing today?
Today I'm good.
Excellent. Welcome to class, everyone. We are going to get started with our lesson. The lesson we are going to look at is this one. It's called President Obama's Opinion on Mandatory Voting, which is an interesting idea that we are going to define. Okay, so before we do anything, we're going to make sure that we understand mandatory voting. Do you guys know what mandatory voting is? Does anyone know how to define this? Anyone? Can anyone tell me what is mandatory voting?
For the citizens.
Good. Yeah, it is for citizens. And what else? What else can we say about mandatory voting?
It's choosing the good person for control something.
Okay, Trung, that's the voting part. Definitely, that's the voting part. Mandatory voting is an interesting concept. Hi, Saul. Mandatory voting is an interesting concept. Mandatory voting, I'll try to explain this as best as I can. It means that you must vote. Not that you can vote if you want, you must vote. This means voting is obligatory. You have to do it. And if you don't vote, there is a penalty, right? It could be money that you have to pay, like a fine, or it could be that you can't get a passport, right? But mandatory voting is a system, okay, where voting is necessary. You have to do it, okay? So we're going to get into our warm-up and we're going to talk a little more about our own countries and voting. So I'm going to go first. So what we'll do for the warm-up, say your name and where you live. Hang on for a minute, you guys. Here we go. Say your name and where you live, and you're going to answer the question, does your country have mandatory voting? Okay, so we'll just see what that looks like. Okay, I'm going to go first with the warm-up question. Okay, so my name is Shannon and I live in Canada. I live in Western Canada in a small town near Vancouver. Does Canada have mandatory voting? No, we don't. If you want to vote, you can vote. But if you're tired or you're busy or you're having lunch at McDonald's and you don't want to vote, you don't have to, okay? So in Canada, voting is optional, okay? If you want to vote, yes, you can. But if you don't want to vote, nobody does anything, right? So voting is optional. In some countries, it isn't. It's mandatory. So let's talk to Fanny. Fanny, can you do the warm-up question, please?
Yes. My name is Fanny. I'm from Mexico. I live in Mexico City. The vote is your decision because I have the democracy system. Yeah, is correct.
Yeah, a democratic system.
Yes.
But is voting mandatory? ¿Es obligatorio? ¿Tienes que hacerlo o es opcional?
Is optional.
Good. Okay, good.
Yeah.
So there we have another country where it's optional, right? So in Mexico, voting is optional. You can, but if you don't want to, that's okay. Okay. Let's talk to Trung. So Trung, can you do the warm-up question, please?
Yes. My name is Trung. I'm from Vietnam. Now I live in Ho Chi Minh City. In my country, we have mandatory voting, and because I think I don't care a lot in the political, and some within the time for voting, and in Vietnam we don't I think because when my parent or my family can vote for me, I don't know because the government not arrest me when I don't voice, and
Oh, wow. Mhm.
I think the voting in Vietnam not really, and they just not police, and because everyone to put the tickets to join who is won, but the result we don't know. It's not public in result, and
Yeah.
just the people in the government know, and
Yeah.
because a lot of the people work in the government, the people don't like, but they still work in this position. I think it's not clear.
Yeah, I understand. We can also say it's not transparent, right? It's not very transparent or public.
Yes.
What happens, Trung, if somebody doesn't vote? Maybe they forgot. What happens if someone doesn't vote?
I think I say it's normal. Yes.
It's normal for them not to vote?
Because now I'm 31 years old, but until now I
Yeah.
never vote in my life, and sometimes
So maybe it isn't mandatory, Trung. Maybe in Vietnam it's optional.
I think it's optional.
Okay. Yeah, it sounds like it's optional. If you haven't voted and you're 31, it sounds like it's not mandatory. It's optional. Remember, mandatory means that you have to vote. It's necessary. The law says that you have to vote. Okay, let's keep going. And Raul, can you do the warm-up question, please?
My name is Raúl. I'm from Mexico, in Monterrey City, the city in the north of Mexico. In Mexico, it's optional to the voting.
Good. What about Saul? Saul, can you do the warm-up question, please?
I currently voted for.
You voted in the recent election in Mexico?
Currently voted because I'm 10 years old.
Did you vote, Saul, in the election? Did you vote?
Hello.
Hi, Saul.
Hi. Yes, I voted in this election because I currently 19 years old and I can vote it.
Good. What's the age, Saul? At what age can you vote in Mexico? Is it like 16 or 18 or 19?
And 18.
At 18? Okay. So was that the
18,
first time? Was it the first time you voted?
Yes.
Okay, good for you. Good for you. It's always good to participate, right? Okay, Thoa, can you do the warm-up question, please?
Yeah. My name is Hoa, and I live in Ho Chi Minh City in Vietnam. And I think in Vietnam have a mandatory voting, but it's just for adult and above 21 years old. And
Okay.
it for provincial level.
Mhm. Good, good, good. So the voting age is 21 in Vietnam. And can something bad happen if you don't vote, Thua? Does something bad happen, or does like nothing happen?
Nothing happened.
That's good for people who don't vote. That's good. You know, it's interesting. In Brazil, we don't have any students today from Brazil, but in Brazil, voting is mandatory. That means you have to vote. And if you don't vote, you have to pay money. So you have to pay a fine, right? So in Brazil, voting is mandatory. Everyone has to vote, or you have to pay money. And in Australia as well, voting is mandatory. And that's what we're going to read about. Okay, so we're going to read about mandatory voting in Australia, and we're going to read Obama's opinion about mandatory voting. Okay, so let's read. And we'll divide it maybe roughly in half. Let's break it right here. Okay, and we'll start with Fanny. So Fanny, can you please read the, sorry you guys, lost you. Here you are. Okay, Fanny, can you please read the first half?
Yes. But I can see all. Okay, thank you. An excerpt of remarks by President Obama to the City Club of Cleveland. In Australia and some other countries, there's mandatory voting. It will be transformative if everybody votes. If everybody votes, then it will completely change the political map in this country, because the people who tend not to vote are young.
Good. And this is voted, right? If everybody voted.
Voted.
Good. And Trung, can you read the second part?
Yes. They are lower income.
Oh, hang on. There.
They are lower income. They skew more heavily toward immigrant group and military group, and they are working hard, and there are reasons why some folk try to keep them away from the poor. We should want to get them into the pools.
Good. Good, Trung. Couple of words here. So this word immigrant.
Immigrant.
Good. And minority. Minority.
Minority.
That sounds good. Okay, so this is our lesson. Do you guys have any questions? Do you guys have any vocabulary questions? Pardon me? Any questions, you guys?
Yes. What is sweat? Sweat is yeah.
That's a good question, and I'm going to do my best to answer it. So when something is skewed, it's oriented in one direction over another one. And I'm going to try to show you oriented in one direction. I'm going to try and show you an image that shows what something is skewed looks like. Okay, so give me a moment.
Yes.
Yeah. Let's look at these graphs, right? They're both skewed. One is positively skewed and one is negatively skewed. What we're talking about is people who vote, okay? People who vote and people who don't vote, okay?
Okay.
It's skewed more heavily towards immigrant groups, minority groups. These groups in the United States don't vote a lot, right? Young people don't vote a lot. Lower income people don't vote a lot. Immigrants don't vote a lot, and minority groups don't vote a lot, right? So there's a big difference in these populations and whether or not they vote. Why they don't vote, I don't know. Maybe they're working, maybe it's not important to them, maybe they don't know where to go to vote. I don't know why, but there's a skew, right? Okay, any other questions, you guys? Anyone? No? Okay, let's move on. We're going to answer the questions and then we're going to talk a little bit about mandatory voting and if we agree or disagree. So let's listen first.
An excerpt of remarks by City Club of Cleveland and some other country. There's mandatory voting. It would be transformative. Everybody voted. Everybody voted. Change the political map of this country because the people not to vote. They're lower income. They're skewed more heavily towards immigrant groups and minority groups. And they're working hard. There's a reason why some folks try to keep them away from the polls. We should want to get them to the polls.
Let's try our questions and let's start with Raul. So Raul, can you please read number 1 and then choose the correct answer?
Yes. Obama feels that voting in the USA should be required by law.
Excellent. Yeah, he thinks voting should be mandatory. He thinks everyone should be required by law to vote, like in Australia, like in Brazil and other countries. Saul, can you please do number 2?
Who is Obama's audience? Is members of a formal club in Cleveland.
Excellent. Yeah, the City Club of Cleveland. Very good. And Thwa, can you do number 3?
Option. Young people and minority group would stop voting.
Not stop. They wouldn't stop voting. They might start voting, but they wouldn't stop voting because these groups don't vote, right? For the most part. Do you want to try a different answer here, Thwa?
I think it's a new group of people would begin to vote.
Excellent. Yeah, really good spot. New groups of people would begin to vote. People like young people, lower income people, immigrant people, minority people, right? Good. Okay, so I want to talk about mandatory voting. Is it a good idea or a bad idea? I don't know, honestly. I'm not sure if it's good or bad because I've never experienced that, right? It might be good, I don't know. But we're going to talk about, is mandatory voting a good idea or a bad idea? So let's start with Fanny. Fanny, what do you think? Is it a good idea or a bad one?
I think it's a bad idea because Because not all people have information about the candidates, and yeah, and I don't know, if you don't have information, your vote can be wrong, and I don't know.
That's a good point. You know, if you don't have information, your vote might be very random. You're just like, oh, okay, this person, right? So that might not be so good. Good. Okay, very good. And what about Trung? Do you think mandatory voting is a good idea or a bad idea?
I think mandatory vote is good ideas because every person, every people in country have to take care the political in the country, and responsibility for them for they doing, and we need to take care who is because we vote for fighting the leader to help our country develop, and we need to find a good person, and I think we need to in the result we need for example in Vietnam I need to more to public, and everyone to know who is who which result, and I want to make clearly in the voting.
Good, very good. So Trung, you think maybe that it's the citizen's responsibility, right? So if you're a citizen in a country, you have that responsibility to participate, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's a very good point, right? We should make those decisions because this is where we live, right? So yeah, that's a very good point, Trung. Good. What about Raul? What do you think about mandatory voting? Is this a good idea or a bad idea?
I think mandatory voting is a good idea because the opinion of the people is listened by the government. You know the candidates by a debate. You select the best choice for you.
Good. What about Raul? What about someone who just doesn't know anything about the candidates? They don't know anything about the parties. What about people who are not educated or informed?
But in Mexico, the candidates have a debate, and the next day you can read the debate in a newspaper. I think all the people have the information.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Do people talk a lot about politics in Mexico, or is it kind of like a quiet topic?
No, it's a quiet topic.
Interesting. Very interesting. Okay, good, Raul. Good. Yeah, there's good points on both sides of this, right? There's definitely good arguments on both sides, for sure. Okay, what about you, Saul? Do you think mandatory voting is a good idea or a bad idea?
I think this a good idea because the people choose the better for they.
For them or for themselves? Good. So what about someone who just isn't political, they're not interested in politics, and they don't want to participate? What about those people?
I do not understand.
That's okay. What about let's imagine someone who doesn't want to participate. So someone who just doesn't want to participate in the political process, or who doesn't want to participate in politics, should they still vote?
I think that it's good that the people choose the better for them, because everybody can expression each opinion, and I think I don't know.
Good, Cyril. Good. Everyone should express their opinion, right? Wherever their opinion is. Yeah, absolutely. That is a good argument in favor. And Thwa, what is your view? Do you think mandatory voting is a good or a bad idea?
I think mandatory voting is a good idea because when all of the citizens voting, we have accurate percent, and it shows the citizen responsibility.
Excellent point, Thwa. You have an accurate result, right? Yeah. So imagine, you guys, if 100% of the people vote, the leader is the leader, right? The winner is really who everyone wanted to win. If you have a country where like 50% of the people vote, right, which happens, sometimes the people who win, it doesn't like really reflect very well what people wanted. So that is another great argument. And you guys had some great arguments, both for and against, for sure. So I'm going to wrap our class up because we're out of time. Thank you guys for coming. You guys did a very good job on this topic, which is a little complicated to talk about. And I hope you have a wonderful night or a wonderful day. Take care. See you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, teacher.
Bye, teacher.